Black Scully on check. Got a little Merlin theme polo on check. Welcome to another marvelous episode. It is Wednesday. Hope you guys are happy to be here so we can have another wonderful discussion about college football. Let's get into what's on today's docket. We'll talk about Josh Pate and him partnering with I don't know why I was struggling to get that word out, with On 3 and Yahoo Sports. I think this is a major move. Definitely didn't have this on my 2025 bingo card. So it's kind of impressive to see that he's moved on from it was like 24/7 Sports and CBS, and now he's with On 3 and Yahoo, and it created so much buzz yesterday because a lot of people didn't expect it. I think also, and I'll talk a little bit more about this during the segment, I don't think a lot of people really understood how it works. He still owns his own show. He will still be providing his own show. He's just partnering with them. It's just more money funneled in. Nick Saban drops the truth about SEC and playoff flaws. He kind of just, discusses the teams that he's watching. He hasn't given his prediction or anything, but the teams he's watching this year in the SEC. Dabo Swinney says Clemson's going 16-0. I'm telling you, I like this Dabo Swinney. I like this Dabo Swinney a lot. I think it's impressive to hear him talk, and do not let Clemson win a national championship with him doing it his way. Don't let that happen. I'm telling you, that media run is going to be impressive. Also, in our Into the News segment, we want to talk about Colorado's coaching staff being arguably the most NFL loaded in college football history. Also, in our Into the News segment, Tennessee quarterback situation. Greg McElroy is going to speak on that. I've talked about Tennessee quite a lot lately. I know a lot of people haven't liked exactly everything that I've had to say about Tennessee, but, I've talked about it quite a bit. Mike Elko addresses the arrest of Dalton Brooks at Texas A&M. We'll talk a little bit about that. For our Governor React segment, we're going to get into Bleacher Report did a piece on, I think it was 5 teams that are under the radar that can kind of spoil people's playoff chances this upcoming season. We'll talk about that. We'll react to that. I didn't think the list overall was bad, but there was just one team, in my opinion, that shouldn't have been on the list, just based on scheduling and a couple of other things. Also, in our Governor Rulings segment, could collective bargaining actually fix college football? We've kind of talked about a lot on governor's ruling lately. We talked about the golden rule, like the CCC, and what they're trying to do with NIL Go and have, the banning of the third party NIL, organizations that's just like for programs to funnel through money. I think the next step is collective bargaining. We see it, at every major sports level. As far as American sports are concerned, I think, with this first step in the right direction with the NIL Go and the 3 golden rules, I think once we get past that, then we start looking at, collective bargaining, and I think that will help a lot. And then for last Around the Nation segment, we're going to look at CBS Sports. They just dropped their preseason top 25. So we're going to, evaluate that and react to it like we always do. Governor College Football, hashtag go CFB. CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Two
CJ
great
on
defensive
that
minds.
track.
They have to be better on that side of it. Alrighty, our Into the News segment. It's Wednesday. It's a beautiful day, August 6th. Not sure where you guys are at. Did see some raindrops outside earlier, but it still feels really good outside. So happy to be here. Happy to talk about college football. For those of y'all who've never been to this stream before, we are live Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you are looking for college football, you are excited for college football, we're going to be here. We're going to be a staple. During the season, that will change is travel constraints. I know, like, week 0, we've narrowed down where we're going because I wasn't sure if I was going anywhere week 0. I'm going somewhere week 0. I talked to our communication strategist, Moon, yesterday. We talked for a couple of hours. A lot of teams been hitting him up. So it's great to see. So I will be going somewhere week 0. And then week 1, I'm not sure what that looks like, but we plan on being somewhere Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I don't know how it's going to, mess with the show. But, one of the things that we're asking for is the ability to go live when we do travel. So I can still bring you this show. In season, it'll probably be more than likely Monday through Thursday. During normal weeks, just week 1 is just crazy. During normal weeks, and then, Friday will be a travel day. And then wherever we at Saturday, we fully anticipate on going live. But let's get into the news. Josh Pate joins On 3 Yahoo Sports, and it's not join. I guess join is it's just the verbiage to use, but it's truly a partnership that, he's just backed by them. He completely owns his show. He completely still will decide where he'll be going week in and week out. It's just to have the backing, the supporter, to still be able to, be in Nashville. Because I'm pretty sure 247 Sports Studio was in Nashville. He's still in Nashville. I'm not sure how it will work. And I don't know if he went live yesterday. If he did, I missed his show, which is rare. I think I had a college football 26 league game I had to play. I played it and I went to sleep. So I missed it. So he might have addressed it. I don't know if his directors are going with him or anything like that, or his producers are going with them. Hopefully they are. But I think this is a huge W for On3 and Yahoo and what they're trying to do. And then it leaves me with a few thoughts. What is really going on with 247 Sports? So after I saw that, I was like, hey, I've been getting a lot of 247 Sports notifications for live, but I don't know if it was just because we just went past the media day cycle. Even On3, I haven't really seen any live streams from Andy and Ari, and I know Andy Staples will also be helping Yahoo Sports, so they're all in cahoots somehow. That's On3 and Rivals. I believe On3 owns Rivals. The guy that started Rivals also started 247 Sports, also started On3. So On3 is winning right now. So I mean, you just look at their team. They also announced Zach Herbstreit will be joining them. But if you just look at their team and the coverage that they'll be able to give, I have yet to meet JD Pickell in person yet. I'm sure I'll see him throughout this upcoming season. I know Moon has met him. They've had really positive conversations. I haven't caught Josh Pate yet. I'm going to catch him somewhere. We follow each other on Twitter. I'm going to catch him somewhere this season, hopefully. He just goes to bigger games that I go to. I'm the G5 governor, IGIFI, man. I get in where I fit in. But I have met Andy Staples, man. Andy Staples is incredible. Me and him talked about everything last time I seen him. And I wish I'd have got him, because I did interview a bunch of people that, like the movers and shakers in the industry. And I wish we was able to do this on camera. But we were talking about everything from, the teams that, we think are sleeper picks. We talking about fashion. I had the Concords 11 on. We just talking about Jordans. We just talking about everything. So Andy Staples is dope. And a lot of people that I've met in this industry is dope. Matt Berry is super dope. Greg McElroy is dope. We're going to talk about him a little bit later in this segment. So it's just cool. So Josh Pate joining On3 is just a W for college football, because I believe On3 will give him more resources, to be honest with you, because they are on top of the recruiting game, to be honest with you. And now that they have Rivals as well with them, oh yeah, he'll have, the resources are plentiful, as we like to say here. Let's talk a little bit about Nick Saban and the SEC. Nick Saban still, reading the college football tea leaves, and that's what we all doing this time of year, right? What a time to be alive. This is a great time to discuss college football, let's be honest. And at his annual, Nick Kids Foundation luncheon, the former Alabama coach, who's now an ESPN analyst, picked Texas, LSU, Florida, and Georgia, and yes, even Alabama as legitimate SEC title threats. It's going to be interesting to see how this thing is worked out. I know initially heading into the season, after I did my post-spring camp top 25, I looked at Texas and I said, hey, Texas will win the SEC. And I kind of still feel that way, but I'm not as comfortable with that pick, because on paper, what LSU is doing on paper, it looks really good. When you look at their team, you look at, how well it's been built, how well it's been formulated, and we just need to see the results on the gridiron, truthfully. And I feel the same way. Like Florida roster, I love Florida roster. DJ Lagway, he's real deal. I really like their running back room. They got a 1-2 punch in Ball and Jackson. We look at their wide receiver room. We know how great their wide receiver room. Offensive line. Personally, my favorite offensive line in the country is in Gainesville. Personally, I know some people like, what Notre Dame or Penn State is doing or what I was doing. But personally, my favorite offensive line in the country, and that starts with Jake Slaughter, their center. Their offensive line is really good. So, yes, Florida is definitely being the thick of things. And then we look at a team like Georgia, and we know that is going to start their season. Is there a coach at this level that I trust more than Kirby Smart? No, there's not a coach at this level that I trust more than Kirby Smart. So while we do have some questions heading into the season, I do like some of the pieces that they got. I like the kid, Nate Frazier. Him and Josh McCray, who they got from Illinois, will make an awesome 1-2 punch. It'd be interesting to see how they end up using Zachariah Branch. I thought at times he was misused, and I hate saying stuff like that because I hold Lincoln Riley in a very high regard. Some of you don't even know, like I've created a playbook. My playbook is an air raid playbook, but it does have power run principles in it. And like I hold Lincoln Riley very high regard. Like how I learned a lot of the air raid was just combing through his 2017 Oklahoma playbook, learning the concepts. Like it was so much knowledge for me. And I can't wait to start giving you guys breakdown. Like I really truly understand the air raid, so I can't wait to start giving you breakdowns. And now look at a team as Alabama. I don't know what's going on in Alabama right now, to be honest with you. I really like their team. I thought Ty Simpson was the MVP of the spring. And I look at them and I say, yo, Alabama could be legit this year. You know, Kalen DeBoer got his partner in crime and Ryan Grubb back. You know, I feel like Kalen DeBoer is tightening things up there. And Tuscaloosa, I guess where some of the curiosity or confusion for me comes in at is like, they still acting like it's a quarterback battle. Like Ty Simpson didn't already earn his job. Like, what are we doing? Like, you know, I understand the smoke screens and all of that other BS, but, you know, it is what it is. But the SEC, the football is going to be great there. I think a lot of these conferences, the only conference I think, at least at the P4 level, that's a clear runaway team is Clemson. I think Clemson is clearly the best team in the ACC, and the second best team is a little ways away, right? When you look at the return production, you look at how well Clemson develops their players, you look at the current roster, you have to say that, hey, they're clearly the best team in the ACC. And then there's a group of teams that, you know, some people would deem, hey, you know, maybe, you know, I know Miami, some people see that Miami is in the thick of things in the ACC. They will be, but I would pick a team like Louisville before I pick a team like Miami. And Georgia Tech is going to be scary in the ACC. I talked about that yesterday. Duke, I really love what Manny Diaz is doing in Durham. But, you know, when we look at the Big Ten, it's plentiful. We don't know who's going to win the Big Ten. Oregon will be right there. Ohio State will be right there. Penn State is my favorite roster in that conference. It really is. So, you know, and the same thing with the Big 12. Anybody can win the Big 12 right now. My betting pick is Baylor. So it's plentiful. But back to the Nick Saban discussion. The real came out when he called out the College Football Playoff Committee. Saban blasting the system for punishing teams with tough schedules while rewarding weaker paths, pointing to Alabama's 2024 omission despite 3 quality losses. Now, I'm not sure if Vanderbilt is a quality loss, even though they were bowl eligible. But I think, you know, and I've said this before, I've been on record to say I would love to see what, you know, 12 or 14 or even 16 team playoff would look like if we go back to BCS. Because we have to create metrics, right? We have to establish, hey, what matters most? To me, your strength of schedule should be the number one thing. You know, and then we look at that metric, that should be heavily weighted in anything else. And then we start to look at, well, did you win your conference? Did you win your conference championship? Those things will matter, you know, after that. But numero uno should be, you know, your strength of schedule. And until these things are, you know, laid out and formulated where we have a key and we can see it the way that they see it, you know, I don't know. We just got a lot to discuss there. Spoke a little bit about Clemson a little bit earlier. Dabo Swinney predict Clemson will go 16-0. Yes, you heard that right. Dabo Swinney is predicting that Clemson will be the first ever 16-0 team in college football history under the new playoff format. He's done it, you know, 15-0 before back in 2018. And this team is loaded, man. I love Wesco. I know Antonio Williams gets a lot of the credit, but I think Wesco's the best receiver in that wide receiver room. Cade Klubnik, you know, I always look at, you know, who's the quarterback, who's the offensive coordinator, what is their relationship like. Cade Klubnik, Garrett Riley, probably the best quarterback, offensive coordinator, you know, relationship in the sport. So I just expect success. And I think Cade Klubnik, he's second right now on my Heisman rankings. I do have Garrett Nussmeier first on my rankings, but it'll be something that we'll look at. I'll get into all of those superlative things, not this upcoming week. Actually, next week. It is next week. Next week I'll release my college football playoff predictions, and I'll also release like those superlative things as well. So Colorado coaching staff is straight out the Hall of Fame, right? Deion Sanders now has over 160 years of NFL experience with Warren Sapp, Marshall Faulk, Pat Shurmur, Robert Livingston, DeMonte Pecco, and I believe, you know, he's just waiting to see if Brian Leftwich is going to join the staff. And he also, you know, have the hopes of Mike Zimmer joining the staff. If you look at this staff and the NFL experience, I think it's incredible what they're building down there in Colorado. I'm still calibrating how good this team could be this year. I do believe that this is the best offensive line they had, at least while Deion's been there. It'd have been nice to see that while Shador was there. I ultimately believe Caden Salter will be the starting quarterback in Boulder. It'll be wait and see, but I like the fact that they have so much NFL experience, and that if that's something that you came to Boulder to do, you want to make it to the NFL, you have a myriad of guys there you can have conversations with and really get to that next level, and I think that's impressive. Greg McElroy has real concerns about Tennessee's quarterback room. Tennessee has been a huge topic of discussion, and I feel like it's an even more topic of discussion as of recent. Now, we did have, shout out to J.D. Pickell. He was able to solve Blurgate, and it indeed was a tight end who threw that pass that ended up being a deflection. And I don't know how Tennessee's quality assurance allowed that to be posted on the internet, knowing that we have some excessive, college football fans, those 1%ers who were just trying to figure out, who was that quarterback on that play. But it's been a huge topic. I think a lot of people are kind of afraid to say, hey, we don't know what to expect out of Tennessee this year, to be completely transparent with you. I think they really fumbled the bag with the quarterback situation. I think if they would have said, hey, we're going to release Nico Iamaleava, after the stunt he pulled during the college football playoff, allegedly, that he was willing to hold out for more money, then is when you should have made the call. Then you have a myriad of quarterbacks in the portal to choose from. You're not just going with Aguilar. We don't know what the depth chart looks like right now. Joey Aguilar is slated to starter for now. I've seen some people that believe Jake Merklinger is going to be the starter, but Greg McElroy has real concerns about the quarterback room. With Nico being gone, like I just mentioned, enter Joey Aguilar, App State transfer, who ironically transferred, to UCLA temporarily before going to Knoxville. Aguilar numbers, big yardage, but also a turnover problem, 14 interceptions last season. McElroy's concern is, can Aguilar lead Josh Heupel's, or really, Joy Hazel's fast-paced scheme in time to face Georgia and Bama? I think that's a legitimate concern. I really do believe that that's a legitimate concern. Can Joey Aguilar lead them? But we don't know who the quarterback is going to be. George McIntyre certainly has a horse in the race. I talked about Jake Merklinger already. We don't know. But we've seen Heupel have a lot of success here. And even last year, Nico wasn't asked to do a lot. I do believe they lost talent, but, running backs like Peyton Lewis is on their roster now. They should be excited because that system does produce, great running backs. So it'll be interesting to see. I have some serious concerns about Tennessee at the moment until I see them play, until I see them lace it up. And at the Aflac Bowl, we will be in attendance for the Aflac Bowl. Shout out to the Aflac Bowl. Shout out to Mr. I think his name was, I forgot his name. Moon interviewed him. He, pretty much guaranteed, hey, you guys will be in attendance for that. So we will be there week 1 for both of those Aflac Bowls, the one on Saturday and Sunday. So that's Virginia Tech, South Carolina, and that's Tennessee versus Syracuse. So we'll be there for both of those games. Like I told you guys, week 1 is going to be crazy. So Greg McElroy does have, legitimate concerns for Tennessee. Dalton Brooks arrested. Fall camp just started in College Station, but they're already in crisis mode. Sadie Dalton Brooks was arrested in connection to a June hit and run. Head coach Mike Elko addressed the situation publicly, calling it serious, but stating the program will handle it internally. Those words, right? Brooks is, Brooks had 77 tackles, 7 TFLs, 2 picks, in this last 25 games. And Texas A&M definitely got a tough schedule, but if you're in the SEC, that's just kind of what you signed up for. So that's our Into the News segment. I'm excited to get into our Governor React segment, so we're going to move right along, but that's our Into the News. If you are a college football fan but been busy the last 24 hours, this Into the News segment is for you. I'm going to tell you the news. I get my one-liner, but now we're about to get into kind of the meat and potatoes of this segment and of this show, so we're going to go to Governor Reacts. Alrighty, Governor Reacts. Bleacher Report on teams under the radar. And they list a few teams who are under the radar, teams that can spoil some playoff chances this year. And the first team they had listed was the Arkansas Razorbacks. And while I'll be honest, I have used Arkansas quite a bit, I really like their roster for Road to the College Football Playoff. The game mode on College Football 26. But their schedule is difficult. It's really difficult. I think Sam Pittman has done an outstanding job in Fayetteville, avoiding being fired. There was people who's calling for him to be fired in 2023. Yet, and respect the people, right? And yet it's 2025 and he's still standing, bro. You know what I'm saying? Getting his, best Elton John on, right? So Sam Pittman is 100% coaching for his job this year. Let's make absolutely no mistake about it. He's coaching for his job this year. His seat may be the hottest in the country. I think there's some other people with really hot seats, but teams or programs have yet to come out and say something about it. I think about a team like Cincinnati. Like, Cincinnati got talent this year. Like, after going to Big 12 media days and speaking with every player that they brung, I wish them nothing but success. I truly do. But I think Scott Satterfield's seat has been hot. I think it's real. I think it's hot. I don't think it's as hot as Pittman's, but I think his seat is hot. You look at, what they've done the first couple of years. You look at, where they were at. Granted, this is the P4 level. That was at the, G5 level when Luke Fickell had the success that he had at Cincinnati. But then you just look at a team like Louisville. Look at the improvements that Louisville has made since Jeff Brom has entered the building. But let's get back to Arkansas. Sam Pittman is definitely on the hot seat. With that schedule, bro, bowl eligible or better, he keeps his job, whether you guys like it or not. And I know there's been some bold predictions, within CFB Nation circles that, hey, this might be the first guy fired. But, looking at the schedule, they should start off 2-0. And then they go at Ole Miss, right? At Memphis. Moon had the opportunity to coach, to speak with, Coach Silverfield at American Media Day. Shout out to the American Conference. When I tell you, doing what we want, what we are attempting to do in this sport, especially, being an independent entity, and to have conferences like the American, bro, who, off the humble, reached out to Moon the other day and said, hey, if you guys need anything, let me know. That's amazing to have, bro. It truly is amazing to have when somebody sees the work that you're doing and they notice it, and, they were able to see it. Like I said, we was the only live entity there, only live video entity on Radio Row that we were being bum rushed. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But let me tell you something about Memphis and something that Coach Silverfield brought to our attention that I didn't know. This was one hell of a stat. He said that since 2014, I believe it is, maybe 2015, Memphis has the third most home wins. It's difficult to go down there and get a win. So if you just looking at this Arkansas schedule, seeing how they can get to bowl eligibility or better, and you look at this Memphis game and you make the mistake of just checking this off as a win, you gonna get your buddy's worth. I promise you. Don't do that, because they gonna give you all they can have. They got the kid Brendan Lewis who played at Nevada last year. And it's this funny story that me and Jalen always talk about. We was watching Week 0 ball last year. And it was a game that, it was SMU. Preston Stone was starting. I was excited because him and, Kevin Jennings' thing was bleeding into the regular season, which I hate when quarterbacks battles bleed into the regular season. And I'm like, yo, why is SMU struggling with Nevada? And then, that was this funny play. It was 3rd and 18, yo. Nevada called a quarterback draw and Brendan Lewis got it. That kid is electric. So if he can pass with some efficiency this season, Memphis is going to be dangerous. So just looking at the schedule, and you think that they just going to, walk into Memphis and just walk out with a win, I'm telling you, that game is not going to go the way people think. It'll be a close game. I'm not saying Memphis is going to absolutely win a game, but it's difficult to go on Memphis and get a win. You can ask anybody at that. Then, so they'll start 2-0, right? And then we're looking at 2 games. Most people probably, after the first quarter mark, could probably have them at 3-1. I'm not saying they're gonna be 3-1. I'm not that comfortable because I know how difficult it is to win in Memphis. You have these places, right? It's just, you don't know why it is. It's just the way it is, right? For years, me and my dad used to always say, yo, weird things always happen in Mile High. Like the Broncos, you'll just see the weirdest thing at those games. So I always hated playing, at the Mile High, being a Bills fan. Memphis is one of those places, weird things happen. The ball just tends to roll in Memphis' direction. So be careful of that game. But if you got Arkansas coming out of the first quarter mark, 3-1, that's fantastic. I'm not certain. I'm saying it can go either way. Then they play Notre Dame at Tennessee. I know I've been very critical of Tennessee. It's still going to be difficult to win in Knoxville. It really is. And then you look at a 3-week stretch where they play Texas A&M. These are all home games. Auburn, Mississippi State, then go at LSU and at Texas. You find me 6 games, bruh. I don't see it. Like, I love Taylor Green. I love what he could bring to the table. I'm not sure if Coach Pittman makes it through this season. If he does, and he goes 6-6 or better, he deserves a contract extension. He truly does deserve a contract extension if he goes 6-6 or better. So that's the first team that they had is under the radar. I do like the talent that they have on the roster. Can they compete? Absolutely. But they have to play cleaner football than the games that I watched of Arkansas last year. It wasn't clean football. They were turning the ball over, a bunch of penalties. If they can play mistake-free football and they have possessions ending in a kick, whether that's a punt, a field goal, or a point after touchdown, they will be able to upset some of these teams. But if they aren't playing mistake-free football and it's messy, they're not going to win many games this year. Number 2 for the underrated our teams is Baylor. I was having a discussion with Moon. We was down at, Paradise in Boca Raton covering FAU. And I was saying that, like, I don't want to say I started the Baylor train. You know what I'm saying? Just because my platform isn't quite big enough. But I feel like we was talking up Baylor, because CFB Nation platform is big enough. And I was talking it up on CFB Nation as well. But I don't want to say I started, but I kind of feel like I started it, to be honest with you. But maybe that's just in my head and I'm tripping. And I've seen Baylor get so much hype recently. I'm like, I'm starting to feel weird about Baylor now. I was like, they're getting too much hype. Because I like having those teams that not a lot of people are talking about, right? And Moon was like, man, you might have to switch your thinking. I'm like, nah, I ain't switching my thinking. I just love the roster too much. Like, they're going to play physically, defensively. Sawyer Robertson, for my money, I know Sam Levitt gets the hype, but for my money, he's the best quarterback in that conference. Bryson Washington is the best running back in that conference. Josh Cameron, the stud wide receiver, is one of the better wide receivers in the conference and maybe one of the best all-purpose players in the conference because he's dangerous in the return game as well. If Trigg can be the guy that we think he can be, Michael Trigg is the real deal. They were able to get somebody like a Kobe Prentice via the portal. So I'm all in on this team. But I want everybody to do something. Circle week 1, because I forgot this was a week 1 game, because I would have told Moon, hey, yo, I want to go walking in Waco, but we've kind of got week 1 mapped out, and it's going to surround that Atlanta region because of the Aflac Bowl and being able to go to a game on Sunday and a game on Saturday, going to that Clemson game, which I think is the biggest game of the week. I would have really loved to go to Waco for this game, but it just makes more sense for us to stay in that near Atlanta region and just, go to a bunch of games down there at the G5 and P4 level. And we may even check out an HBCU game that week as well. But yes, I'm 100% all in on Baylor. And I want you guys to circle this week 1 game. Because I know there's a lot of people really high on Auburn this year. I like Auburn. I really do. They got arguably one of the best wide receiver cores in the country. I like what they bring to the table. We just need to see it on the field. Because it's not just Hugh Freeze that needs to prove these things. Also, Jackson Arnold did not look good in Norman last year. Make no mistake about it. He did not look like the stud talent that when we were evaluating that 2022 class, he didn't look remotely like that guy. But I'm not going to place all the blame on him. I'm going to place some of the blame on Seth Luttrell, and I'm going to place some of the blame on Brett Venables, even though he really don't got anything to do with the offense. So they all can share that blame. This game, circle this game. Because while everybody's going to be talking up Auburn, Baylor is going to put the country on notice after this game. I guarantee you that. They are going to 100% put the nation on notice after this game. Because y'all going to see it. Y'all going to see the physicality now. Coach Randy, y'all can't start the way y'all started last season. Y'all started off 2-4. Then you ripped off 6 straight before losing to, I think it was LSU in your bowl game. You got to start fast this year. The expectations are through the roof. You guys can legitimately win the Big 12 this year. This game, circle this game. I'm telling you, Sawyer Robertson, I saw a list. Phil Steele made a list of the 25 best quarterbacks heading into the 2026 NFL draft. Somebody commented it. Yo, so where's Sawyer Robertson? Yes, where was Sawyer Robertson, Phil Steele? Like, you look, the kid is a legit 6'5", 6'6". He really is. It really is. Maybe 6'4", 6'5", I mean. I'm telling you, this Baylor team is really good. Circle that game week 1. If you leave after week 1 and see that, Baylor won by a couple touchdowns, don't go looking at Auburn and say, oh, maybe they're not the team that we thought they were. No, they are. It's just that Baylor is just that damn good. That's all I got to say. And then Georgia Tech, bro. I'm telling, it's something about Brent Key, man. They are like ACC street ballers, man. You look at a team in the ACC that kind of got like an SEC ideology, a team that could probably throw them blows in the SEC. I'm not saying that they're going to SEC and just win a bunch of games. That's not what I'm saying at all. But they'd survive. They'd be bowl eligible because of the physicality. We seen it with Georgia last year. They're going to run the ball 100%. So I like the fact that Bleacher Report had them on this list. I agree with it. Brent Key, his mantra, running the ball. If they can get more trust into Haynes King, and Haynes King can really deliver this year, especially if you look at what he was able to do the 2023 season. I think statistically there was a downslide last year, but I think they were just, that mantra was run the ball, and they were just following that 100%, right? So I really like what Georgia Tech brings to the table when we start to look at the ACC and truly try to calibrate. All right, Clemson's in the class of their own. Let's look at this really rich middle class in the ACC. Who's some of those teams that can come out? Is it Louisville? That's my pick. But could Georgia Tech be there? Yes. A team, like Miami, could they be there? Yes, they really could. But could a team like Georgia Tech be there? Absolutely. Don't doubt Manny Diaz. What we was able to do last year after Riley Leonard left, and then the way that Mike Elko left Durham last year, it should be celebrated. Great year. Manny Diaz did a bang-up job last year. He gets such a knock for, his time in Coral Gables, and I hate that. I hate that so much, but, celebrate the now. If we look at this sport, and when we analyze this sport, this is a what have you done for me lately sport, well, celebrate the man for what he accomplished last year in Durham. But, yeah, Georgia Tech is dangerous. I really like Jamal Haynes. Malik Rutherford is still there. I thought he had some opportunities in some game where they just could not hit him because, as a wide receiver there, you'll produce, but probably not as much as you'll produce in other systems because of the, hey, man, their head coach is an offensive lineman, bro. What offensive lineman want to do? In the fourth quarter, run the ball, we want to punch you in your mouth. That's exactly what we want to do in the fourth quarter, right? So I think we got to look at it at that. So great job, Bleacher Report. I'm excited. You know what I'm saying? We saw what Georgia Tech been able to do with Miami the last couple seasons. I remember when North Carolina was hot a couple of years ago. They was able to beat them. The fans stormed the field. Georgia Tech is not an easy out, bro. They're not an easy out at all. So the fourth team that Bleacher Report had on this list is Kentucky. I don't see it. I really don't. I don't see it. I want to see it because I'm a believer in Mark Stoops. And, he's been able to make Kentucky respectful during his tenure there. But this season with their schedule, they'll be scrappy. They'll be tough. But, I think we'll figure out where they're at week one. We'll get a damn good calibration of where the Wildcats are week one. Because they got to play Toledo. Toledo's coming to town. And when we start to, look at some of the better group of 5 teams, Toledo is certainly on that list. So, is it a game that Kentucky should win? Yeah. But is it a game that they will win? That's another discussion. Because Toledo going to bring all they have. So, like I said, I love what Mark Stoops stands for. He's going to always keep Kentucky competitive. Rebuilt roster. I don't like what they have at quarterback. I just don't see it. Could they really shake up this year if they able to get a win versus a team like Tennessee? Probably. But I just don't see it as, teams flying under the radar. They are under the radar, but that's when I start to analyze it and say, well, should they be under the radar? And I believe that they are rated appropriately with them being under the radar. Just being honest with you, right? Washington, I really like this one. I talk about middle class in every conference. The Big Ten middle class is growing. For a long time, they were just very top-heavy. And I'm like, the Big Ten kind of mid, right? After you leave some of those top-heavy teams. But you look at, Washington. Washington did finish their year 6-7. And Jed Fish, inaugural their year. But they were 6-0 at home. And this year they host Ohio State. They host Oregon and Illinois. Tough. But they do have to go to Michigan. Demon Williams Jr., I really like him. I think he's going to surprise some people at quarterback. Jonah Coleman, he was good his last year at Arizona, and he was good his first year. I think he eclipsed 1,000 yards, had 10 touchdowns last season. I really like what he brings to the table. And then Denzel Boston, he needs to get his flowers soon too. So I think Jed Fish is building something there in Seattle. I'm interested to see if they can make the leap from a strong middle class right type of team to like a tier 2 team. I don't think they'll get to tier 1 this year. When ranking the overall wealth of the Big Ten, but can they get to that tier 2 where they're somewhere around like 8-4, 9-3? It'll be interesting. So yeah, they could definitely play spoilers this year, and it's difficult to go in Seattle and get a win. The same way I feel about going in Memphis to get a win is the same way I feel about going to Seattle and getting a win. It's difficult. They won all their games at home last year. You're supposed to take business at home. Now they just got to put a couple, road games together. But I like that. But yeah, the Big Ten middle class is growing. You got a team like Nebraska. If we follow the, Matt Rule, year 3 rule, right? USC, Lincoln Riley. Dude, they had 5 one-score losses last year. 5 of them last year. I don't think people know how good USC could have really been this year. And for the people that's sleeping on UCLA and just expect them to roll over, I'm telling you, UCLA is going to be better than advertised. Love Tino Siri hire. I think Mikey Matthews can be a factor for them. I think Nico will be in a system that's a little bit more comfortable for them. I really think they're going bowling this year. I truly believe that. The team in East Lansing, I believe in Aiden Childs. When I get to go to these games, I get to see him on the sidelines. A lot of times you get a lot more access on the away team sideline. So I was at Maryland and Michigan State's game last year where Maryland should have won, but Michigan State won. And after every possession, good or bad, you see Aiden Childs talking his team up. If he felt like a throw was his fault, even if it wasn't his fault, he would take accountability for it. He said, I got you. I missed you on that play. You just see him rowing his guys up on the sideline, and it's real. You can see guys shaking their head like, yeah, let's go get it. I like what Michigan State has to offer. And then Minnesota, PJ Fleck and company, they're going to be right there in the thick of things, man. So I like the middle class that's formulating. And then maybe Michigan is in the middle class this year. Maybe they're no longer in the upper echelon, right? That's something that, that's yet to be seen, but it's certainly something to think about, truly and truthfully. So, yeah, bottom line, every season has spoilers. And this list, there are some teams that are on to come up. But like I said, Arkansas and Kentucky, I wish I could see it. That gauntlet of the SEC is so tough. I just can't sit there and say automatically, like, yes, they're going to be there. But, Georgia Tech will be there in the thick of things. Baylor will be there in the thick of things. And as well as Washington will be there in the thick of things. So let's get right into our next segment. No ads, man. Shout out to Bull Rush. Shout out to the good people at Bull Rush, man. I feel like we've been so locked in with these episodes, man. We ain't taking no ad breaks, man. Let's get into our governor ruling. Alrighty, and we back. Governor ruling. The CFB needs CBA. So this segment has always been more about the headlines. It really has. It's been about evaluating the semantics of the sport and offering real solutions. So let's talk about collective bargaining. Could it fix what's broken at the collegiate level? First, the facts. So we're going to get to the facts. I'm going to kind of explain, what is collective bargaining and what that looked like at the collegiate level. For these governor ruling segments, it's always my favorite segment. And I know we won't get as much as these during the season because we'll have so many previews to do, predictions to do, and reactions to do, from the crazy weekend that, Saturday gives us week in and week out, that we won't have much time for these. But hopefully during the season when we do have governor ruling, I can start having guests on and we can start, discussing this together. So the facts. What is collective bargaining in college sports? The idea of collective bargaining, once a dirty phrase in college sports, if we're being honest, right? And I don't know why. I don't know why it's deemed such a dirty phrase. It's now being, discussed in public forums, private meetings, and legal courtrooms as potential long-term solution to restore order, because we do need order at the collegiate level. In short, collective bargaining will allow athletes, initially footballs and men's basketball, of course, to negotiate binding agreements with a central organizing body, potentially not the universities themselves, to establish fair wages, working conditions, transfer guidelines, and contract protections. Of course, each year, both of those sports will have to elect, a few people to represent them. Of course, there would be, like Arch Manning would be a good one this year, Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, people who are respected and people who's going to hold the fort down for everybody else. So that's what collective bargaining is. It's not just chatter anymore, but it's actually and actively being pitched and developed by major players inside the system. So Danny White, shout out to Danny White, man, former Cowboy quarterback, now AD at Tennessee. Tennessee athletic director Danny White has been working for years on a formal CBA model. And there's a lot of people who believe, let's just do it the way the pros do it. We need to have a salary cap the way that the pros do it. right? We should be able to see the contracts via a system like NIL Go, the way the pros see it. Now, Nino had such a great statement about NIL Go. He said, so what if you just have like $500, deals that don't have to be reported? I was like, that's a good one. I ain't thinking that, but that's a good one. So he's no longer in the shadows, but here's what he's proposing. A national employment organization that will represent the athletes. Athletes opt in voluntarily or bargain collectively. That's when I said you will have the representatives. Schools stay aligned with education, but athletes gain formalized rights and protections. It sidesteps direct employee classification with the university. In white words, we have to stop pretending that they aren't getting paid to play. They are 100%. Great job, Danny White. They are 100% being paid to play. Now, they're being paid to play by the universities. Not exactly, but if you don't think that some of these universities were funneling money through these BS third-party NIL companies, I think they were. Have I seen it? Has it been proven? No. But, for now, it's just hearsay. It's just thought, right? So who else is on board? We got some powerful names that are, saying the quiet out loud. Lane Kiffin, just copy the NFL system. Nick Saban, unionize it. Baylor's Mac Rhodes, SMU, Damon Evans, UNC's Bubba Cunningham, FSU's Michael Alford have all expressed support. Even Judge Claudia Wilkin, and I respect Claudia Wilkin, I really do. Overseeing the House versus NCAA settlement, saying the agreement would be better if they had been collectively bargained. And that's why she was so hard on the universities. And I know the universities were probably upset with her. So, what does it fix and what collective bargaining could solve? Legally binding contracts between athletes and programs, salary structures and caps determined through negotiation. So that's when we started to look at the fair market value that the NIL Go, as they were talking about the golden rules as it pertained to that. This is where the caps will be determined through negotiation. Protection from antitrust lawsuits, which is a very key point. And that's what a lot of the House versus NCAA was all about. The antitrust laws, enforcement on tampering, poaching, and contract violations. There are so many programs right now that are not even hiding the fact that they're tampering or poaching. We talk about the NC Central situation where allegedly, the assistant or that somebody from Virginia Tech came down on the sideline pretending to be interested in someone but was actually interested in a player, and his goal there was making a pitch to their star running back who ended up going to UVA. There need to be penalties for stuff like that when found guilty. That's why I'm very careful in how I structure that sentence, and I use a word like allegedly because it hasn't been proven 100%, right? So enforcement on tampering, poaching, and contract violations, predictability and roster movement, NIL structure, and revenue sharing. The revenue sharing side of things is just about figured out. There's still some I's we need to dot, some T's we need to cross, but most importantly, shared accountability for both athletes and programs. Why is it not simple? Because most powerful commissioners oppose it publicly, citing collapse of non-revenue sports. Unionizing is legally complex across 30 sports, 1,000 schools. But that's why you start with football and basketball first. Schools and right-to-work states face legal hurdles. Congress is gridlocked, 5+ years, 14 hearings, and 0 federal laws passed. Some players may not want to limit their current leverage in the open market. Even with that, the support is growing in now. So here's my ruling. Here's how I feel about it. I think CBA at the collegiate level would be a slam dunk. Maybe not for all sports, but, football is king at the collegiate level, whether we like it or not, right? Then it'll be, collegiate basketball. But in the fall, the game is as pure as ever. That's why whenever we talk about these semantic style segments, these editorial pieces, as I love to call them, and I always love editorial pieces, college football still remains the greatest sport on earth. That's why every time I talk about this, I don't want you guys to say, oh, here go the governor criticizing the game again. The game is fine. Nothing wrong with the game. It's just, not the 16 weeks of elite Saturdays, right? Plus bowl season, right? I'm talking about, it's really 14 weeks, the Army, Navy, then conference. You guys know what I mean. I'm talking about those 34, 35 weeks of the offseason, when we get into, transfer portal window 1 and then the late window portal. And then we see, situations like we saw with Xavier Lucas and Jeff Retzlaff, who didn't even leave, who didn't even enter the portal. They just withdrew from their universities and went to their next university, right? So, but we're going to evaluate the industry as a glass half empty. That's our job. That is our duty, and that's what we're going to do. The truth is always, a little bit more difficult to deal with, right? The House versus NCAA settlement was a turning point. Judge Claudia Wilkin did an outstanding job holding programs accountable while fighting for athletes' rights. She really did. Securing a $20 million per year of revenue sharing was a massive win. I think about 15 to 16 million of that will be for football. Fast forward, we got President Trump's Saving College Sports initiative, putting guardrails on the Wild Wild West NIL chaos, banning third-party deals, requiring anything over $600 to go through the NIL Go, and enforcing golden rules that will demand public good or service. If you want to be one of these, allow NIL collectives, operate for profit, stay within fair market value, and that'll be tracked by the NIL Go. I told D-Now and Nino, this is a step in the right direction. I really did, because they were like, well, how does this fix it? It was like, how are people going to be held accountable for it? And they asked a fantastic question, because Lane Kiffin also proposed the same question. My thoughts were, hey, this is just a step in the right direction. This isn't the end-all, be-all. I think we'll get further steps, right? So the initial step was just, alrighty, let's get a basis of a foundation, with the 3 golden rules: demand a public good or service, operate for profit, stay within fair market value, tracked by NIL Go. Now, the next step moving forward is the ideology of a CBA, of a collective bargaining. The NCAA still lost. Still crying over the death of amateurism. So if you want NCAA help, they still crying because these aren't student athletes, right? They just athletes who happen to go to college, right? They're still upset over that. They're still upset over the ideology of amateurism. They 100% are. And it is what it is, but they'll be okay, right? The programs are bitter that they can't hoard the money off athletes like before. They, these programs was winning, bro. This is the line, one of my favorite lines that I've said. And I said this 2 years ago. You go to Ann Arbor, back in 91, you'll see Desmond Howard jerseys in the stands. Of course, they wouldn't have his name on it. But hell, they were selling them joints at the bookstore. You know what I'm saying? Same time period. You could go to Boulder, Eric Bieniemy, you'll see a bunch of ones in the stadium. He wasn't getting paid for that. So they was cool with violating antitrust laws. So the programs are just bitter because they feel like the athletes has too much power, which is kind of what I'm about to get to my next point. And the athletes now have too much control, which they do. I agree with that. I always side on the athletes, but now they have a little bit too much power. With chaos turning into a lawless transfer portal, we hold these truths to be self-evident. This is out of control, and we need help. What are those steps to get into the right direction? Well, the first one is those 3 golden rules that we mentioned. Huge step in the right direction. The next one is the collective bargaining agreement, because that gives a structure. It creates ethics around compensation and working conditions. I mean, hell, when you unionize, you do have the ability to picket, to strike, until people end up being chumps and crossing the picket lines, right? Not just for players, but for schools, and it allows shared accountability. Dual accountability is so important. Hey, we gonna hold y'all accountable, y'all gonna hold us accountable. I love it, right? Where everyone has skin in the game, because we've got what now? We got Xavier Lewis and Jeff Retzlaff leaving. How you just withdraw from your school without entering a portal and then signing with a new school? That's because it's the Wild Wild West. Because why? The NCAA is still crying over the idea of amateurism and the fact we don't have it anymore. Charlie Baker and them ain't about to do nothing. They not. Only thing they do is they'll just hold a player against his will that ain't do nothing wrong, but they don't want to allow him to play. That's about all the NCAA going to do. They ain't going to do nothing else. Tampering, poaching, and backdoor NIL promises. We seen that with the Jaden Rashada situation. I still think about that. The Jaden Rashada situation still lives rent-free in my head. That kid was done wrong. 100%. That's why collective bargaining wouldn't be probably the final step, because there'll be some things that they need in collective bargaining. But when we look at it, it'd be a huge step in the right direction. Revenue sharing deals that read like fake marketing agreements with escape hatches for schools. It's a mess. And without CBA, it 100% stays a mess. We need real contracts. We need an agreed upon system of rights and consequences. And we need programs to be held accountable to, not just the athletes. These programs are still doing crazy. They still doing crazy activity. And I've mentioned a lot of them. I'm not going to go over them here, but this isn't about the players versus the schools. This is about order versus chaos. We 100% need structure. We 100% need order. A CBA is a win-win for players, coaches, administrators, and fans who want a better version of the sport we love. Like we always say, we don't got no issue with this joint in the fall. And the fall is beautiful. It's right after the season, and you see players entering the portal right after their team was in a bowl game, a playoff game, and then like deals were already done. Like we saw how fast that Carson Beck went to Miami, or how fast Darian Mensah went to Durham. Like, some of this happens too fast. But this is my ruling. And, let's stop fearing the inevitable. We do need collective bargaining. We need rules and regulations for not only the universities, we need rules and regulations for these players as well, because it is the wild, wild west. That's why some people are leaving the sport. They don't want to coach at this level. We see Jeff Hafley leave. Nick Saban, I'm not so certain Nick Saban was ready to retire, more so that he was just tired of dealing with the BS. After they lost to Michigan, how many players were acting like crybabies and was talking about, immediately announcing that they're going to the NFL or immediately announcing that they're entering the portal? I think he had just had enough. I still think he got, more coaching in him. I think he just had enough with this current state of coaching. I really do. So let's move on to our next segment. That's my 2 cents. I really am a huge proponent, huge fan of collective bargaining agreement at the collegiate level. Some people won't be, and because it's so many hurdles you have to clear as far as like individual state rights, but I'm a huge proponent of it. Let's get to our next segment, Around the Nation. We're going to look at CBS Sports Preseason Top 25. Y'all stay tuned. Alrighty, Around the Nation, CBS Sports releases their Top 25, and we're going to look at it. We're going to always look at it how we do. We're going to go from 25 to 1. Hopefully we don't see any ties like we saw in the coaches poll. I thought that was lazy work, bro. Like, make a decision. There shouldn't be no ties. Have a tiebreaker or something. I just don't like when we get lazy. At number 25, Utah Utes. Seeing Utah at number 25, I think that's more so, we believe in the program. We believe in the coaching staff that they have there. We believe that Devin Dampier is real deal. And the circles that I'm in here at CFB Nation, a lot of people believe that. I know Moon, huge fan of Devin Dampier. I know, Boom, D-Now are as well. So Utah Utes is fitting at 25. At 24, Oklahoma Sooners. I thought it was wrong to Oklahoma. I know they had a bad year last year, right? But if we always judge a sport on a basis of what have you done for me lately, you look at what they've been able to do, the pieces that they have been able to add, adding Ben Arbuckle, adding John Mateer, adding Jaden Ott, and really focusing on this offense, because this defense is going to be legit. I think Peyton Bowen is bound for a breakout year this year. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. So Brent Venables gets to focus more on his true love, the defense. Ben Arbuckle will handle the offense. So if you're a stud defensive mind and you're a head coach, go get your stud offensive coordinator. Vice versa. You somebody like a, Zach Kitley, go get you a stud defensive coordinator like he has in Dewhurst, right? I think that's important. Indiana Hoosiers are at 23. I've seen Kirk Cinetti is a guy that I love, and I got to see him a great deal. For those of y'all who don't know, I live in Virginia. I've been to a couple handful games at JMU, got to watch them from the field. So in this introductory press conference with Indiana, when he says, "Google me, I win," I wasn't surprised because he did. And then people clowned him, right? And he did what he said he was going to do. So year 2, I seen a really interesting interview with Andy Staples, Ari Wasserman, and Coach. And it was hilarious, because I could tell what, Andy Wasserman wanted to ask him, but you could just see Kirk Cinetti just, wasn't having it. So he was like, "So what you saying is we the hunted this season?" So he was like, "Well, if we the hunted this season, does that mean we can't hunt?" It was hilarious. And, of course, Andy Staples is laughing, Ari Wasserman is laughing. It was hilarious. It truly was hilarious, but you got to love Kirk Cinetti. I'm interested to see what happens there. Of course, we talked about Tino Ciceri. He's now in Los Angeles. And, Mike Shanahan, who called the plays last year anyway, just will lose the passing, game coordinator element that he had with Tino. Fernando Mendoza, what that looks like, I'm interested to see. 22, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is one of those teams. Every year, the teams that I'm high on that disappoint me, it takes me a while to start talking about them. Let's say Baylor is a huge letdown this year, right? You guys know I'm really high on Baylor. Baylor's a huge letdown this year, bro. I promise you. It's going to take me a while to talk about it. I'm going to be heartbroken. Ole Miss was that for me. And then I started looking more into the program. Lane Kiffin, man, I think he's truly grown as a coach. I really do. And this Simmons kid that they have at QB, I think is going to be really good. And Lane Kiffin develops quarterbacks really well. He really does, because Jackson Dart wasn't that Jackson Dart that we just saw get drafted as a second quarterback in the NFL draft. He was a long ways away from that a few years ago. But that's why development is so important, right? So, yes, I'm higher on Ole Miss than I was in the spring. I was just brokenhearted, that's all. Number 21, we got Texas Tech. Texas Tech spending a lot of money. It better work. It better work. It better work. It really better work. They lost Zach Kelly. I said that earlier. Zach Kelly is now down at FAU. But it better work at Texas Tech. They spend a lot of money on that defense. That defense gave up a lot of points. We seen Baylor put hands and feet upon them, score 59 on them boys. I'm going to just see what it looks like, but I'm a believer in what's going on in Lubbock. Tennessee at 20. I said this before. I say it again. This is a what have you done for me lately? And if you look at their overall roster construction, can you say this is a top 25 team? In my opinion, there's some teams that are not mentioned that certainly I think that will beat Tennessee in a neutral site. So they're not a top 25 team to me. Yes, that's going to hurt some people's feelings. Oh, they were in the college football playoff last year. Look how good of a job they did. Nico wasn't all that spectacular anyway. He only had 19 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Bro, I'm not trying to hear that. This is SEC ball. That gauntlet is so difficult to go through. So if y'all saying that after everything you've seen this offseason that transpired, if you think Tennessee is going to be 9-3 or better, you are highly mistaken. And if they go 9-3 or better, I will apologize publicly. I promise you I would apologize publicly. But right now, from what I've seen, based on the metric of what have you done for me lately as it pertains to the offseason, the word or the verbiage or the vernacular that we had used, and they are not a top 25 team. They're not. I'm sorry. Number 19, Iowa State Cyclones. Huge fans of theirs. Glad to see that they're at 19. Number 18, Texas A&M. I've been hearing Marshall Reed is making true development in that Colin Klein system. He ain't looking over his shoulder this year. Kind of was looking over somebody else's shoulder, and then Connor Wegman started looking over his shoulder. Then they swapped. But, hey, Texas A&M is going to be really good. I've been a huge fan of Casey Concepcion. I remember going to NC State, which was my first ever program that I've ever visited and been credentialed for. So shout out to Annabelle Myers. So I went down there. I was talking to my dog, Joe Giglio. Shout out to him, man. It was good. It's always good. I see him every year at ACC Media Days. We always chop it up. And I was like, yo, he's like, yo, who do you keep talking about? Because he was sitting right there next to me. Because we was in a press box. It was raining outside, so nobody's on the sideline. He's like, who you keep talking about? I'm like, yo, Conception's open every play. And then after that, I remember, coming back to the house. It's about a 3-hour drive for me, 3.5 hour maybe. And I remember doing the post-spring video, and all I could talk about was Casey Concepcion. He's real deal. He's going to get open a lot. SMU been at 17. I think SMU's going to have a slump this year, man. I'm really feeling a sophomore slump. I hate to say it, but I truly believe they'll have a sophomore slump this year. Had a lot of success last year. I think some teams will catch them this year. I think teams are going to watch the Penn State tape and figure out, how to slow down that RPO. Because you're not going to 100% stop it, but they do it, I think, better than anybody in the country. I've always said that Kevin Jennings is the best RPO quarterback in the country. And I firmly believe that. South Carolina at 16. Some people probably say this is a little low. I like South Carolina. I always talk about coaches that I want to take in the alley with me if we got to go fight. If Lever Street got to go fight, Riverview Terrace, top of the hill, whoever we need to go fight, right? Hey, man. Yeah, Shane Beamer, young. You can run with us, man. Yeah, we about to go fight. Yeah. Give me Shane Beamer, man. He's definitely one of those guys. Number 15, Michigan. Did a show Monday. We was doing buying stock or selling stock, and I sold Michigan stock, and I hated to do it because the sport is just better when they're better. Like, I even thoroughly enjoyed last year when they, beat Ohio State 4th time in a row. I just don't see it this year. I'm not sure with the guy that, Jim Harbaugh is, the attention to detail, those devil in the details, the team was more equipped for him to go away for a couple games. And I think the team will be, especially with a freshman quarterback, if he ends up starting, then with Sharon Moore leaving for a few weeks. Yes, they play CMU. They'll win that game, but that Nebraska game is no gimme. It's no gimme at all. 14, Kansas State. Hey, man, CBS high on Kansas State. I like it. Big 12 getting love. I like it. Of course, I'm mad Baylor not in the top 25, but it's all good, though. It's all good. I like Kansas State. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like this year, but Chris Klieman always going to have his team ready. Number 12, Florida. I like seeing Florida a little bit higher. I've spoken enough about Florida. You know how I feel about their offensive line, the running backs, the wide receiver core. DJ Lagway, I think maybe have the highest ceiling in the country. Some people would disagree. I'll probably say, hey, I think Lenore Sellers have a little bit higher of a ceiling, and that may be true. But for my money, and I look at that offensive line that's in front of him, I think DJ Lagway has the highest ceiling in the country. And he won a lot of games last year. If he can stay healthy, and that offensive line should be able to keep him upright. And I go back to a quote from from the movie The Program. Are you hurt or are you injured? Yeah. Play through the physicality, right? At number 13, Illinois. I love to see the Illini getting the hype. And I think I skipped over them and went straight to Florida. Sorry about that, Illinois. That's messed up that I just skipped over them. Huge fan of Brett Bielema. I love that game between them and South Carolina. I would love to see Bielema and Shane Beamer duke it out. That'd be cool. But I do have Illinois as of now in my college football playoff. I like what Luke Altmaier brings to the table. Him and Barry Lundy Jr., I think they have an outstanding connection. I hate that they lost Josh McCray, Hustle Clement, who they got by the way of Morgantown from West Virginia. He's going to be real there this year. 11, Arizona State Sun Devils. I think some people believe that I don't rock with Arizona State. I do. I really do. Sam Levitt is special. See, when we were at Big 12 Media Days, we were sitting right next to Fanatics, and they were with EA Sports through the Creator Network. And we seen Sam Levitt getting his coaching bag, say, okay, this is the play I'm about to do, and this is why it's about to work. I'm about to run a plug concept to the left. This linebacker's going to do this. This corner's going to do that, and I'm going to throw a dot. He did it, and this was on the goal line, mind you. Threw a touchdown exactly the way he said he was going to do it. I'm like, this kid's locked in. So, no, I do like Arizona State. And, Kenny Dillingham, wherever Kenny Dillingham is coaching, I'm a fan of the team, bro. That's another fiery coach that I like a lot. All right, so we're going to get into the top 10, and these one-liners will be from what CBS had to say about each team. Miami Hurricanes, Cam Ward's gone, Carson Beck steps in. How fast he adapts will determine if the U finally breaks through. Number 9, LSU, pressure on Brian Kelly, but Nussmeier at quarterback, Harold Perkins on defense. Baton Rouge has championship buzz. They do, and they should. But let's see how it does. Dante Moore, QB 3-3 seasons, but the Atlantic Ducks are hungry to bounce back from a one-and-done playoff. Notre Dame comes in at number 6 despite a championship loss. Notre Dame's gritty playoff run solidified Marcus Freeman's status. Yeah, I agree with that. Quarterback battle still looms. Number 5, Georgia. I like it. I think I skipped over 8. Alabama was at 8. My apologies. I'm just skipping over teams today. The poor second year brings questions at quarterback, but no shortage of talent. They tied, expect to rebound in 2025. I certainly believe that. So let's go over this top 10 again. Miami at 10, LSU at 9, Alabama at 8, Oregon at 7. I said the Fighting Irish was at 6. Georgia's at 5. 2 years removed from their dynasty peak, Georgia now turns to Gunnar Stockton to steer the ship. Number 4, Clemson. Kind of low for my liking, but that's not bad. Veteran loaded and coming off an ACC title, Clemson rides Cade Klubnik and NFL-ready talent into 2025. They have a really good roster. They really do. Ohio State comes in at number 3, fresh off a national title. The Buckeyes enter 2025 with a quarterback mystery and championship hangover watch. I'm not sure what's certain that's the right verbiage. I just think teams are getting closer. Teams are catching up. Penn State at number 2. I really like this. With their full backfield returning, the only major question is, in Happy Valley, who steps up at wide receiver? I put out a short the other day, speaking on Tim Brando's top 15 list. And I did this live, and of course, whenever I make a short, it's just from the live. And I said that there aren't 5 teams in the country better than Penn State. And people, I guess, took that and said that I said they were the best team in the country. Yeah, they had one of the best rosters in the country. I stand by that 100%. But I said there aren't 5 better rosters in the sport. I didn't say where they stand, so people start naming in the comment section teams that were better. Like, okay, that's your opinion. I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, I said what I said. You feel me? And then at number 1 to close out CBS Sports Top 25 is the Texas Longhorns. What a great show today. And these hours just go by, quick, bro. I promise you, man. These hours, some of the fastest hours of the sport, right? Another great show in the books. Wednesday, which means this was, the 3rd episode of the week. We still got 2 more episodes. We got episode tomorrow, episode Friday. I will let everybody know where I'm going week 0 next week. Also, I think we got week 0 predictions. Not next week. It's the week after. I'm rushing it. But I will put out my fall camp predictions probably next Friday. It'll be, who I think is going to win a championship. That'll come out next Friday. I'm getting ready for the CFB Nation poll. I'm starting to see all of the votes come in, and then I would, do the calculations, and we will have our top 25 out. I'm super excited to see what that looks like. As I always like to say, there are no more victories in the sport that survive in the fast. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. And until next time, y'all take care. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's
Two
CJ
great defensive
on
minds.
the
They have to be better on that side of checking out this video. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and also don't forget to check out the other content that we have.